And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
Kevin from Beverly Hills writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Subject line, Kamala story time. Hey, cool Johnny and Hot Randy. When Kamala Harris's book comes out, can you guys please, just for a week, do a little segment and read sections of the book for our entertainment? Please? Absolutely, absolutely. That's right. I like that.
If we were to do a dramatic reading from Kamala Harris's book, who should we have do the reading?
Well, we do have a lot of voices that we can use thanks to the scary technology of AI.
Should it be the Queen of England?
I like to reserve, we don't want to confuse people. We are pretty much locked into the Queen of England and Ricardo Lara being the same person, and I don't really want to mess with that.
I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say.
Well, put your thinking cap on.
That's going to be a caller topic. Who should play Kamala in the dramatic reading?
Well, through AI, whatever you want, we can come up with. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. According to an investigative report done by the Daily Caller News Foundation, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass raked in cash from Chinese intelligence-tied bankers before she ended up hiring them. L.A. Mayor Karen Bass's transition advisory team apparently enlisted two Chinese intelligence-tied bankers who have fundraised for her in a nonprofit that she helps lead. Joining us to talk about this is the investigative reporter who broke the story for the Daily Caller, Phil Lenczyzki. Phil, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, John.
So this is a fascinating story. Can you walk us through just exactly what you found through your reporting?
Absolutely. So what we found is that after she won her election, so this is around December 2022, Bass appointed two individuals, Dominic Ng, the CEO of East West Bank, and Simon Pang, who's the co-founder of Royal Business Bank, both of which are California-based, to her mayoral transition advisory team. And these two individuals, Dominic Ng and Simon Pang, have both donated to Bass's mayoral campaign, as well as to the Mayor's Fund for Los Angeles, which is a nonprofit that was begun by Eric Garcetti, and Bass currently serves as an advisor to the board of directors there. So in total, we're looking at potentially over $1 million between them that went to either her mayoral campaign or to this nonprofit. And the kicker is that both of these individuals are listed as having held positions with the Chinese government and with arms of a Chinese Communist Party influence and intelligence service. They've held different positions, but the positions and, given the other types of individuals that have held these similar roles, it really points to, alarming questions about whether or not they are working at the behest of the Chinese government and specifically agencies that are tasked with co-opting U.S. lawmakers.
What do you think was the motivation for these individuals agreeing to obtain these positions and these positions being offered to these individuals? Do you think it was a quid pro quo, or do they just want to be in the room when important things are discussed so they can, in theory, report back to outside parties about what they learned?
It's a good question, and I assume that you mean their acceptance of Bass's appointments. And so those for those gigs, I think as with anybody, at one level, I'm sure that it's an honor. At another level, I can't read minds, but should they be individuals that are sympathetic or working with the Chinese communists, then they would likely be using that information to know the inner workings of, the government, and they could also use that to influence Bass and or her team to, put in policies that would be people that, Chinese Communist Party's liking. So I think that those would be the really big red flags that we'd want to look for. Unfortunately, we don't really know what they did while they were serving on these, transition advisory teams.
When I look at the position of mayor of Los Angeles, you say to yourself, okay, well, as a local office holder in the state of California, you don't have any control over American foreign policy. Now, when she was in the Congress of the United States, she did have some say over foreign policy. They got to vote on any number of subjects that impacted other countries and certainly impacted the United States foreign policy with other countries. However, now that she's mayor of Los Angeles, she had to give up that seat, and she no longer gets to vote on those items. When I look at what she does have control over, she is someone who has control over the Port of Los Angeles. The Port of Los Angeles, which is very important in terms of trade, not just with China, but with other Asian countries all over the Pacific Rim. She appoints all of the boards and commissioners to the commission that oversees that port and determines much of the policy of what goes on there. So maybe, I guess, if you're looking for preferential treatment at the port, having a good relationship with the mayor of Los Angeles is probably a good idea. The other thing that comes to mind is LAX. We know that there's a lot of air travel that goes on from China and Asia to the United States through LAX. She also gets to appoint the boards and commissioners that deal with Los Angeles International Airport. But beyond those two properties, she's also the host of the Olympics. With the Olympics coming here in 2028, she is the one that essentially calls the shots. We are the host city of the Olympics that year. We know that it is very important to the Chinese government to perform well at the Olympics, to have a good showing at the Olympics, to be treated like royalty at the Olympics. If you want a little extra special treatment, you want a little home cooking when you come over for the Olympics, again, having a good relationship with the mayor of Los Angeles is something that you would benefit from. Do we know if this relationship and these two individuals being placed in these important positions had any impact on our relationship with China in terms of the port, the airport, or the Olympics?
That's a great question, and I hadn't thought of the Olympics when I was doing this investigation, but that's definitely a juicy thought. But no, we don't know what impact they had at all. I think that those are things that should be investigated. But what we do know, and what we can see from their previous interactions, so when we look at the one individual, Simon Pang, who's the co-founder of Royal Business Bank, we can see that he has both with many mayors in California, as well as other individuals holding office, for instance, in the California State Assembly, taking them to China in order to try and establish sister city relationships. So while you're correct that, a mayor should not be able to dictate, national or international policy for the U.S., there is sort of this loophole that the CCP definitely tries to target. They have a kind of a policy in mind, which they've been running, since the inception of the party, which is to sort of encircle the cities from the countryside. And they have the same, strategy to deal with the U.S. government. They want to go to the states. They want to go down to the subnational level and try to get those folks to work towards CCP policy. So that individual, Simon Pang, has certainly been trying to establish and has successfully established certain sister city relationships between California and China. And the other individual, Dominic Ng, who's the CEO of East West Bank, we can look back and see that he also had a relationship with the aforementioned, Eric Garcetti, and had donated large amounts to the Mayor's Fund for Los Angeles during Garcetti's tenure. And what we saw for then was that both Dominic Ng and Eric Garcetti went with some other folks from the mayor's office to China together. They went to, among other places, I believe, the city of Shenzhen. And there, they were both took part in a ribbon cutting ceremony to open up an East-West Bank branch there in that city. And while it's unclear what all else might have occurred during those meetings, there's certainly concerns about what could be done or how banks could be used to further, hostile regime's interests here in the United States. So that when we add in one more detail to that fact, and that's that one of the organizations to which East West Bank has acknowledged that Mr. Ying belonged, called the China Overseas Exchange Association, the head of that association, a woman named Cho Yuen-ping, the head of the time, she was there at the ribbon cutting ceremony. And there's a photo of her with Dominic Ying and Eric Garcetti at this Shenzhen bank branch opening. So it takes on a very sinister nature when we start seeing those types of connections.
We know that California Governor Gavin Newsom traveled to China and, of course, brought his professional photographer with him. So he did a full-on photo shoot over at the Great Wall. Do we know if the CCP has attempted to infiltrate Gavin Newsom and his government at the state level, too?
What I would say is that we covered that. We looked into that situation, and I don't have the answer of whether or not his, Asian affairs liaison or something like that is working for the Chinese government. I don't know that. But what I can tell you is that, and as we reported, the same organization to which Simon Tong, this co-founder of Royal Business Bank, belonged, it's called the Chinese People's Association for French Foreign Countries. This arm of the CCP intelligence, network was the entity that invited Newsom to California at that time. And this Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries has had a very deep and long-standing relationship with California. California even signed an agreement with this organization. We reported on that as well around the time that Newsom traveled to China and did those photo ops that you mentioned. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was someone. In fact, I would believe that there would be. I haven't looked in that direction and don't know.
Let's go back to Karen Bass for a second, because in addition to being the mayor of L.A., former congresswoman from L.A., she was also on Joe Biden's short list for vice president. She was beat out by Kamala Harris for the Democratic Party ticket in 2020, but came within a hair of becoming the vice presidential nominee in that election. She's someone who's certainly ambitious, most recently attending the inauguration of the president of Ghana when L.A. was on fire. And everyone thinks that certainly she's going to run for re-election, but maybe there's something beyond that for her on the national scale. Sometimes foreign governments look at people who they think are upwardly mobile, they think have the ability to move on to higher office, and they want to establish relationships with them when they can, let's just say, buy stock when it's cheap. Do you think that could be an element to this story where they think, okay, there's a chance this woman could be a cabinet secretary, she could be vice president, she could be something bigger in the future, so let's go ahead and sink our claws into her now when she's in municipal office?
Indubitably. That is exactly what's going on. You nailed it. This is exactly their strategy of elite capture. We've seen this time and again. Unfortunately, in many cases, involving California, but, before there was, a representative, Eric Swalwell was having, some type of relationship with this woman, Christine Fang, aka Fang Fang. And so folks that have looked at this have thought this is exactly what that was. She was trying to get in his good graces, to groom him, become instrumental to his cause so that when he rose up through the ranks, he or those of her kind would be there in the wings. So I think that is exactly what is on the table and what they would hope for. But it's unclear who is going to rise up when. So they sort of have a very, scattershot. They're trying to capture as many people as possible in hopes that one of those might one day become someone of great value to them.
I suspect that Karen Bass has not spoken to you or the Daily Caller about this story. Has she commented on it publicly anywhere?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Fascinating stuff. Phil Lenczyzki, investigative reporter for the Daily Caller. If you want to read the story, Phil has tweeted about it, and you can read it over at the Daily Caller website, dailycaller.com. Phil, thanks so much for stopping by.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we're approaching the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
At some point, you must be sick of us. But if you're not and you want to keep listening, there are literally hundreds of hours of this content. Do you realize we do 15 fresh hours a week of this crap?
Some days it feels like it, others not so much.
So if you want to listen to all of that for the past 5 years, you can go to the website. Go to KABC.com, go to KSFO.com. You can go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You could download all the episodes. You could do what Mr. George Gascon likes to do to himself in the middle of the night.
Do a Google on YouTube.
Or you can get the free KABC app, get the free KSFO app. There are so many different ways to listen live to our radio stations and download all of the podcasts. So do it.
And now that we're knocking on the door of the weekend, if you happen to be in the Central Valley, Randy, we're on the air in Fresno.
That's right. It's practically 3 stations now because the Fix California Hour gets a special replay on Saturdays from 2 to 3 on our sister station KMJ in Fresno. That is 580 on the AM dial, 105.9 FM. And even if you're not in the Central Valley, you can stream that at kmjnow.com and download the KMJ Now app as we expand the Fix California Hour to the Central Valley.
All right, coming up next, if you think you're paying a lot for your homeowner's insurance, wait till you find out what happened to one woman in San Diego. It's going to blow you away. Well, all of us homeowners here in the state of California are seeing our insurance premiums go up. But if you think yours went up more than everyone else's, wait till you hear about this woman in San Diego.
She's a recent retiree, and her homeowner's insurance from Farmers went up 375%.
No kidding.
For more, here is ABC 10 in San Diego.
Fallbrook resident is facing a nearly 400% increase in the cost of her homeowner's insurance premium. The resident says the bill came suddenly and without explanation. Team 10 investigative reporter Austin Grabish has been covering the state's insurance crisis. He's reported on companies pulling out of the state and talked to homeowners facing nightmares trying to get insurance. Now he follows through and shows us how the state insurance commissioner is responding to this latest story.
He's not.
I could have told you that.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Debbie Kirkwood doesn't love gardening, but it's what you'll find her doing every morning.
We're cutting down a lot. We're not going to go out to dinner anymore.
The retired public
Wait, is she so broke that she's growing her own tomatoes?
It sounds like it.
Oh, poor lady. If you like gardening, that's great. If you hate gardening, that is not the retirement she envisioned.
The retired public defender can no longer afford to pay a gardener. In June, she got this $13,000 bill from Farmers Insurance.
$13,000 for property insurance?
How can a middle-class person afford to pay that?
In June, she got this $13,000 bill from Farmers Insurance. Her premium was just $2,700 last year.
How can anyone prepare for that kind of a cost increase?
You can't. And certainly not on a public defender's salary. If she's going to be able to afford to pay that bill, she needed to be one of the ones that got OJ off.
They said this is accurate, $13,163 a year.
Debbie moved into this gated community with a fire hall a quick drive away back in 2019.
By the way, it's really rich that she lives in a gated community. Is that perhaps to protect her from all of her clients?
I feel like you don't have as much sympathy for this person as I thought you would.
Nope.
She says costs have been reasonable, except for her insurance, which has gone up 900%.
My goodness. So it went up 375% this year, but in the 5 years she's lived in this house in the Fallbrook area of San Diego County, it's gone up 900%.
Well, maybe she was the defender that got all the arsonists off.
What's your message to farmers?
Why did you do this to me? I'm upset. I've been a good customer for 17 years.
Oh, they don't care about that.
No, they don't. Not one bit.
Never made a claim.
I wanted to know why farmers insurance spiked Debbie's insurance premium by so much. The company told me it can't comment on individual cases, but said wildfire risk is one of several factors it considers when setting rates.
Of course.
That's always the excuse.
What do you think the insurance commissioner needs to do?
He needs to regulate all insurance companies so that no one gets a shocking letter like this.
A spokesperson.
Well, Ricardo Lara doesn't care about that.
Not one bit.
He's got to go see DJ Kittigler this weekend.
A spokesperson for Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara says Debbie's story is similar to many other Californians. Quote, we have to first address availability and then address affordability. It's unrealistic to promise that prices will go down overnight. But with Commissioner Lara's sustainable insurance strategy, we are building a system where people pay for coverage they can actually get.
We're not seeing that. This program has been to effect for half a year now, and prices are still only going up. Insurers are still canceling policies left and right, and even more people are on the FAIR plan than they were last year.
You notice, by the way, that whenever they make a claim like this, they never provide evidence. They never say, look, this is what our policies are. This is the result. You can see it's working, or at least it's working in one geographic area, or fill in the blank. They just make all of these claims with no supporting evidence at all.
Not just be pushed onto the FAIR plan with higher premiums and limited protections.
Yes, but more people are going on the FAIR plan. And thanks to a CBS News investigation, we know that over half of all the people on the FAIR plan are in low wildfire risk zones. So it's not even about that.
Debbie is the latest victim of California's insurance crisis who has contacted Team 10. In 2023, I showed you one landlord's nightmare trying to get coverage after he was suddenly dropped.
The minute I shared a Ramona zip code, they didn't even want to discuss it with me.
And in May, I talked to an Escondido senior who went to the California FAIR plan after being dropped by his carrier. The plan is considered the costly insurance of last resort.
And by the way, it offers coverage so bad it was just deemed illegal by a judge.
Who in the world is buying the FAIR plan if you have any other options? And by the way, if you own your home outright, if I own my home outright and my option was the FAIR plan or no insurance, I would take no insurance.
Well, you do like to gamble. You'll be living on the edge every day.
Due to its limited coverage.
But at least you know that if your home burns down, there's no false hope of, oh, the company you've been paying for years and years and years is going to make you whole.
No. If your home burns down and you have the FAIR plan, you're going to get screwed.
Due to its limited coverage.
I went from $900 to $3,600.
Back in Fallbrook, Debbie is trying to find another company to write her a policy. Now you have this. Is your husband going to be able to retire?
No.
Go back to work, Billy.
No way.
She says if she doesn't find a carrier by the end of August, she may have to move out of her dream home. Austin Grabish, Team 10.
So there is the latest out of San Diego County, where over the last 5 years, one woman's premium for her homeowner's insurance in Fallbrook, thanks to farmers, has gone up 900%, 375% just this year.
What is going to happen to the resale value of our homes if they're essentially not insurable? Because then you are really only allowed to sell to people who are all cash buyers, because the banks are the ones that require insurance. If you own your home outright, you don't need to show proof of insurance to satisfy requirements of a loan, because there is no loan. So you can do whatever you want if you're an all-cash buyer. Now, that means you have no coverage if something bad were to happen. But I guess in this market, in this environment, it's worth it to take your chances.
Well, and this is what we've seen in a few other places, including in Florida, where people have condos that are in flood zones that are trying to sell them, and nobody will buy them because the flood insurance is so expensive.
I have never made an insurance claim in my life. Not one. Now, knock on wood, I've been lucky. I've never experienced a flood or a fire or anything like that. But I'll tell you, covering this subject, if you have the FAIR plan, or I have State Farm, which is apparently just as bad, I know if something bad happens, I'm on my own. The insurance company is not going to come in and make me whole. That's just not going to happen. Not in California, not in 2025. So if you go into it knowing that you're on your own, then why even buy insurance to begin with? I have to because I owe money on my home. But if I owned it outright, I think I'd just cancel my policy. I really do. I know there are companies that are better than others. I just happen to not have one of them. I'm curious to throw this open to the phones at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Have you considered just going without insurance? It's not an option for me because my loan requires me to be insured. But if I own my home, I don't think I'd have insurance. What say you? At 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. One woman in San Diego saw her insurance premiums skyrocket almost 400%. What was it, 900% over 5 years?
That's right.
A lot of people in the state of California are looking at huge premium increases from their insurance companies. I want to know, particularly for those of you who own your homes outright, are you considering going without insurance at all? I imagine a lot of people are kicking tires on that idea. 800-222-5222 is a telephone number. Let's go to Tom in Westchester. Tom, hello.
Hey, how are you doing, John?
Good.
I lived in Pacific Palisades. My family lived up there for a few generations, and we owned our home outright. We were in the alphabet streets. My policy with State Farm was supposed to be canceled on February 7th. January 7th, fires came through and destroyed everything, contents and all. Contemplated going without fire insurance. I'm glad that it happened a month before my policy was canceled. We would have been destroyed financially, as our land would not have been worth much at all for years to come. So State Farm's been good to me. We still have to make our list of contents, but overall, based on our policy, we can rebuild, and we're getting ready to do grading. So it is a big gamble, and it was one I was contemplating, and I'm glad that I didn't have to make that choice.
Well, I'm glad that you had the policy when the fires hit, and I'm glad that you are in the process of rebuilding and everyone in your family is okay. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Kimberly in San Bernardino. Kimberly, hello.
Hi. I was just calling to say I'm in the age bracket where all of my friends and us are retiring, and half of them have made the decision to go without insurance and pay off their homes, and the other half of us are selling and leaving the state. Because I got a quote, and the next quote up was $14,000 for a year. It's unsustainable.
I don't know what you do with that, because let's just say you find a way to pay it. When the policy comes up again, you're going to have to do it all over again and probably more.
Yeah, there's no cap in sight. It's just insanity, and we're at the whim of whatever company's going to insure us because I back up to open hills.
Is it a problem for your friends when they try to sell the house, when buyers are coming in, looking at it and saying, oh boy, I can't find a policy that'll take me?
So far, no, but I am scared that I'm going to have that problem. And we have begged the county of San Bernardino to do the fire abatement that they're supposed to do, and they don't do it. So what do we do?
All right. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Scott, Newport Beach. Scott, hello.
Good afternoon, fellas.
Hi there.
We have a couple of rentals, Costa Mesa, and a primary residence in Newport Beach, and lost all three policies with one of the big carriers, no claims over 30 years, and they were just dropped in completely residential neighborhoods. Shopped around, could not find another carrier to pick up the properties. So we're fortunate enough to own them outright, and we have gone uninsured. We have zero protection.
How is it that no one is willing to sell you fire insurance for a house on the beach? I mean, think about it. The beach is just one great big ashtray.
I don't know. I don't know what my neighbors are doing. There's no end in sight. It's going to be a massive issue.
If you can't buy insurance at the beach because they're worried about fires, imagine what the people in the canyons are going through.
Oh, yeah. There's just no way. I think it's going to destroy the housing market in California. You won't be able to afford to buy a house because of the insurance issue.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Rob in Santa Rosa. Rob, hello.
Yeah, afternoon. Hey, I've been buying a house now since 1978. 30 years ago, I built my own house because I couldn't afford to buy the house I wanted. And I've accelerated my payments to pay the house off, and I plan, as soon as I pay the house off, I'm not going to have an insurance company. One of the reasons being, out of all the years I bought a house, I had some asphalt shingles missing on my front garage. I called the insurance company, and they said it was an act of nature. I think so. It's not covered. And then another thing that's another act of nature is earthquake insurance, and that was outrageous. So you'd never pay that. And since I built my own house, I figured if something happens, I'll fix it myself. But yeah, I've doubled up my payments on my home. As soon as I pay it off, I'm not going to insure it. That's my plan. And during the last big firestorm, everybody wanted to run away, and I deputized all my son's friends. Gave them helmets, jackets, shovels, and told them, "Follow me. We'll be okay." Because if a amber comes this way, we'll put it out. If we leave, the house will burn down. So yeah, I have a plan. I'm not going to pay for an insurance, house insurance, as soon as I pay my house off. But another thing I've always thought of: if your house is being bought through a bank, why doesn't the bank have their own house insurance company? Which is something nobody ever talks about. So I was just wondering, about that.
Well, banks are all about making money, and I don't think you can make money selling insurance in the state of California right now.
Yeah, but if you're a bank, you basically, if you're a bank and you have an insurance company it's your bank insurance company, you could give a cut rate to people getting their loan through you, and then turn around and insure the property because nobody else would. So now you're making a little money on both sides. Now you're going to make money. So nobody ever entertains that. It's like the insurance companies are totally separated from the banks. The thing is, they're in bed together, and you can't get a loan unless you insure it. You can't insure it unless you got you know what I mean? I mean, they got you to 22, but the thing is, really, I think if I had a private bank, I would have my own insurance company, and I would sell house insurance to go along with it.
I can tell you this, they're going to have to start getting creative because what they're doing now isn't working. We got one more hour coming up on The John Phillips Show.